Well, welcome to another episode or edition or whatever we want to call it of Open Book. This is a show, if you're just stumbling on it, my name is John Gray. I'm sitting in Albany, but it doesn't matter where you are because I'm a journalist. I'm also an author, and I love talking to authors. So when they wanted me to do a show, they said, what do you want to talk to? I said, I want to talk to authors about books and authors and where they come from and all that good stuff. And I've been looking forward to this interview for a while because we booked this a while ago, but up it came. It's finally here. If I look off, it's because I'm seeing where I'm clicking. And joining us now is L. Stephen Taylor, the author of a wonderful children's book called Sammy and His Lion. I've got my copy right in front of me. L, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me this afternoon. Thanks.
Let me, I'll jump in with some background questions first here as we get to our first segment here. A little bit about you. You're from Indianapolis. Is that where you grew up?
Indianapolis, born and raised on the west side of Indianapolis, raised by my grandmother there. It was just my brother and myself, raised by my grandmother. And yeah, born and raised, went to school there, went to church there, played basketball there, did all the things back home in Indiana.
And when did you first get any kind of a, for those who don't know, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Before this book ever came along, you've got a huge theater and acting career. Talk to me early days. How do you even get involved with singing or acting or any of those things? How did that come about?
Sure. Yeah. So like most people back in Indiana or any small town, I grew up singing in church. So it's like, there was nothing really serious for us to do as far as like programming for theater or singing or anything like that. But I grew up having fun with it in church. And it wasn't until high school in Indiana. I don't know if it was ever like that up in Albany, but in Indiana we had zone schooling, so we had to go to the school that was in our neighborhood essentially. And so they did away with that my freshman year of high school. And there was a program to where you tested into each specialized high school. And I tested into the foreign language program at Arsenal Technical High School, which is on the east side of Indiana. And I chose the most foreign of languages that I could find on the list that was available to me. And I chose Arabic. And we didn't have a teacher for the first 3 or 4 months. And so they put us all into these holding classes and they dumped me into beginning choir. And there I met the department head and choir director there, Cindy Hartshorn, who is my mentor to this day. And she just took a liking to me. And, I always joke about it. I'm still not sure if it was because she needed boys in the choir or if it was actually because she saw some type of talent in me. But yeah, she introduced me to theater and music, and I just never left the theater department.
Did you know at a young age that you had a strong voice or a good voice or a unique voice, or did that not kind of show up until later?
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely a late bloomer. I always liked to do it. I mean, any of my, my aunt would always say that, I used to act out, but as far as like acting goes, but I was definitely a late bloomer. My voice changed at a very weird time in my life, and then it kind of stayed that way for a while. So I wouldn't even say that I came into my own as a singer or a vocalist until well after high school.
And did you decide in high school you wanted to go for musical theater or something in acting, and then went away to college for that? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so no, there was back in Indiana, there just really wasn't an outlet for or a pathway to pursuing theater or singing or anything related to the arts professionally. And in fact, like people who I think that you would have probably gotten made fun of, or like, it's kind of slapped in the back of the head and say, "Are you serious?" If I told my grandmother that I wanted to go and pursue theater in college, but there was a very specific moment where one of our teachers in the music department took a group of us to see Les Mis at the Murat Theater in Indiana, and that was the first professional show that I saw. And there was we talk about the importance of representation on stage. There was an understudy on for the role of Javert, and he was a Black guy, and it was the first time that I saw another Black person doing theater professionally, and it kind of changed my perspective on what I wanted to accomplish or what I thought possible was possible to accomplish in theater. So that was kind of a turning point for me. But no, I actually went to school to get an early childhood education degree. So I taught preschool for 3 years before I was a performer professionally.
Well, without throwing shade, I'm going to guess your Javert sang better than Russell Crowe in the movie. But they made up for it with Anne Hathaway winning the
Yeah,
Oscar. And
sure,
talk about a role that was made to win an Oscar.
man.
So you go into you want to be a teacher now. Did you get out and you become a teacher for a little while? Walk me through that a little bit.
I did, yeah. My the church that I went to, Holy Trinity. I grew up Catholic, and so the church actually paid for me to go to school if I agreed to come back and teach at the school that was attached to the church. And so that's what I did. And I taught preschool for 3 years. And in fact, it's like I always say that the classroom is kind of one of the biggest stages that I've ever performed on. And my students were always my most honest audience because, like on a constant basis, it's like you just always have to be on. And one of my favorite things to do actually was to read to my students. And I noticed early on that it was like that was the intersection for me. It's because being able to read aloud and play out these characters that were in the books, my kids in my classroom, they really, really like took to that. And I found that they retained information better when I did that. It also was, a good outlet for me to be able to, just kind of play with some acting while I was working. There was definitely a definite intersection between being a teacher and being a performer.
And did you decide at some point I have to stop teaching and I really have to try this to see if I can do it? And then, do you move to New York? Because for those who don't know who you are, I mean, I knew your name before because I'm a big Broadway guy. I'm like, when I saw the book, I immediately Googled your name because I said, I got a Broadway radar because I've seen so many shows, and
Sure.
I said, I know this guy. Wait a second, maybe it's just the same name, but L. Steven. I'm like, that's got to be the same guy. And and we'll get to that in a second about Broadway and Lion King and other things. But did you just move to New York and take your shot and try to get an agent? How did that work out?
No way. Yeah. I've been really fortunate that I've had a lot of people, not unlike my now mentor from high school, who just kind of saw something, kind of pulled me along. So I moonlit as an actor while I was teaching. And so I was working at this theater company, American Cabaret Theater, on the downtown Indianapolis. And the artistic director there, I have been working there for maybe 2 years, doing theater, and it was a theater company where the actors also ran the theater company.
Sure.
And so he kind of took an interest in me, and he said, "Hey, listen, I know that you have this other career as a teacher. I would love to have you here just to kind of mold you into the performer that I think that you can be. I can offer you a job. I'll teach you marketing for theater during the day. You'll come work for me during the day, and then at night you'll perform in all the shows in rep." And so I left my teaching job to go and work for Claude McNeil at American Cabaret Theater. And so I worked in the marketing department and then did theater at night, and that's really kind of where I honed my chops. And that was my first step into the realm of just like becoming a full-time performer.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, they were starting a sister theater company in Seattle, and which did not do very well. But Seattle has a really bustling theater community, as I'm sure that you know.
Sure.
And they have these auditions called the Theater Puget Sound auditions, where you go and you sing your 16 bars of a song, you do your monologue for like 40 or 50 casting directors and artistic directors for theaters in the Pacific Northwest. And I went and I got offered a few jobs, and so moved my family to Seattle. And that's where I have my first, actually my second audition for Lion King.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll do, since you mentioned the magic words Lion King, and we're going to get to Mufasa and the book in our next segment. We'll take a brief break, come back with L. Steven Taylor, a fascinating story from was the west side of Indianapolis all the way to Broadway, and now a book that is a must-read for a lot of parents. Back with more with our special guest after this. All right, welcome back. We are talking to L. Stephen Taylor. Sammy and His Lion is the book. We're going to get to the book, I promise, in a second, but I want to get to, we've now, in our first segment, got you heading towards Broadway. You got an audition for a line. Did you do a touring company before you ever got to Broadway, as many Broadway singers and stars do? It's a ladder. You got to kind of work your way up.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's actually it's interesting because my son is a performer now. He went to Carnegie Mellon and just graduated from college a couple of years ago. And the landscape is so different. It did used to be like that, where you would have to almost essentially like kind of work your way through, or kind of hone your chops in regional theater, in national tours and stuff like that before you ever got to Broadway. So that is the path that I did with just in theater in general. I worked in Seattle for almost 3 years, doing theater out there, choreographing for different theaters. The theater company that moved me out there was a theater company in Olympia, Washington, called Harlequin Productions, and they moved me out there. And so I just performed regionally there. And when I had the call for Lion King to come and audition, I actually originally auditioned for Lion King in Bloomington, Indiana. A group of us drove down from Indianapolis to Bloomington, Indiana to audition, and I had a horrible audition. I was like one of the last people to go. I kind of croaked when I sang, and I felt like, I had missed my big shot. And they came around again while I was performing in Seattle. And I auditioned. The guy who was auditioning us recognized me, and he said, "Where do I know you from?" And I said, "Well, I had an audition for you. I didn't do very well in Indiana." He said, "Well, how do you feel today?" And felt better. Did the audition there, and over the course of 2 years and about 7 auditions, including this, they don't do this anymore, but they used to have this program that was like reading, like Lion King school, where they would take people they were interested in, and they would fly you out to, mine was in San Francisco, and there was a group of us, and we learned, the history of South Africa. We learned all of the different South African languages in the show. We learned the South African dances, and that culminated in a performance for the creative team for Lion King. And so after that, I was like in the pool of people, and I got the call while I was on break for Miss Saigon at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle. And Mark Brandon, the casting director for Lion King, called and said, "Are you ready to come make your Broadway debut?" And so I started in the Broadway company of Lion King, and I was only supposed to be there as a temporary replacement for 6 months.
Wow.
And that happened after 6 months of understudying the role of Mufasa. They offered me the role of Mufasa on the tour.
How many years you been playing Mufasa now?
Now on Broadway for 11
Wow.
years, and I did 3 years on tour.
That's a lot. I imagine they're different animals too in terms of the demand on you. A tour, yeah, you're in different cities every day, just about, or maybe you're there for a 5 or 7 day stretch. But the discipline, they must require different disciplines, emotionally, physically, taking care of your diet. Talk about that briefly before we get to Sammy.
Sure. Yeah, it is. You're exactly right. I feel like, when you're in home base like I am right now, it's easier to kind of cultivate a routine. On the road, it's much harder. It's much more difficult, and so you have to be very, very diligent about it. And that was really early on in my time with the Lion King, and so it's like I had to, create a very solid regimen for myself in order to not feel like I was just playing around in daddy's clothes, because the costume always felt, massive to me. And, just the magnitude of what the role was felt massive to me. So I really, you really do have to kind of be diligent. My wife is actually performing right now on Beauty and the Beast on tour. So it's, also trying to navigate family life, because my son at that time was 3 years old. So it's like trying to navigate family life while you're on tour and your family is back home. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah, I took my oldest is a girl. I took her to see Beauty and the Beast on Broadway when she was probably like 8, and she still talks about it. It really there's something about theater. So if your publicist is watching this, he's not talking about the book. I want to get to the book. I've got my own copy, Sammy and the Lion. I mean, if anybody was going to write this book, it had to be Mufasa, because you talk about. I loved it. I read it twice, and I don't want. You can talk about the storyline, but I felt like it was a story a lot of parents and kids could relate to, because it's talking about fears children have about new teachers, new classmates, bullying that can be out there, teasing for a nicer word. And Sammy has to find his kind of dad talks him into finding his inner lion to sort of not defend himself so much, but get that confidence, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it is. It's like you said. It's like I think that fear, anxiety, those are things that everybody experiences, but for some reason we don't really talk about it. And I think that, I mean, just throwing it back to myself as a kid, I know as a little black boy, especially growing up in Indianapolis, that is just something that I did not have access to. Dealing with those types of feelings was just something that you just didn't do. You're told to, pull your big boy pants on, shove it down, like don't talk about it. And so I really wanted to just kind of tackle this head on from my experience as a teacher and as a dad, and the things that I've had to overcome myself in my own career and getting to where I am. So yeah, so Sammy is this 6-year-old boy who is having some fear and anxiety over his first day of school. And his dad finds that that's the perfect time to introduce him to the family's secret tradition of how to channel his inner lion as a metaphor, like you said, to overcome any obstacles that he might face. So in this first book, like most kids, he's having that fear of going to school. But in the second book, he is going to deal with some bullying situations, as you mentioned, and use his inner lion and help other kids find their inner lion to overcome things that they might be going through.
Yeah, I want to hold up really quick. I'm going to put me up on camera here. I want to show some of the illustrations. The illustrations are fabulous. I've had a couple children's books, so I know that's a big part of it with a kid's book. It's not just you could be Shakespeare, but if the illustrations don't grab their attention, it's not going to work. Talk about that a little bit. Who illustrated this? And I'm assuming you didn't. If you can draw this well and sing and be this good looking, then I'm going to pack it in. Did someone help you out with the illustration?
Yeah, so I actually found that was like, as you mentioned, like that's probably one of the hardest things, right? Because you have this idea in your head and no, I'm not a good, like I can doodle, but it's like I'm not an artist in that capacity by any means. But you have these images in your mind, and finding somebody that you're compatible with to help those images come to life was one of the most difficult probably the most difficult part of making this book come to fruition. And I interviewed a lot of different artists, in New York. I went online and I finally found this woman that I met on Fiverr, actually. And I gave her a couple of prompts, and she shot back images, and she was very quick, and she was very interested, and she just understood the world that Sammy is coming from. So we had a really good relationship from the start. Her name is Leslie, and she's going to be doing the second book as well. So
now, when did this book come out, and when does the second one come out? If people want to get it, and also where can they get it? I'm assuming Amazon or somewhere you can grab this book.
Yep, anywhere that you buy books, you can get it on Amazon. I direct people to the website, sammyandhislion.com. You can get it there as well, and also find out more information about this book and the ones that are coming up. So this book came out in late spring of this year, and the second book will also be coming out in late spring as well. So we can look for that one to come out then.
All right, we're up against another break. We'll take one break, come back with our final segment with L. Stephen Taylor of the book Sammy and His Lion, a great story for a lot of kids. Back with more with our special guest after this. All right, welcome back for our final segment with L. Stephen Taylor. I want to say author, which you are, but also performer and singer. You've done so much. Has the reception been pretty good with the book so far? Because I love it. Like I do this for a living. I interview a lot of authors. I get a lot of books. Some you like, some not your cup of tea. I'm like, I'm hanging out of this one because this is a great book to share with kids because I love the story. I also loved. there's a line in there. I don't want to quote your book directly, but it was almost like, you have to know when to use your inner lion. And I like that because, as parents, and I've got three that are all adults now, but yes, you want them to turn the other cheek and, don't avoid confrontation. But once in a while, you want them to feel like, you may have to stand up for yourself a little bit and say something. And sometimes I think, and I'm going to philosophize here, but if one child in a group, especially little kids like a 10-year-old or 12, if they're picking on somebody and one other kid said, hey, that's not nice, like don't say that to him. It'd probably shut the whole thing down. The bully would be like, oh, okay, the group's not with me. We're all not going to gang up on this kid who's different or whose skin color might be different or maybe he's from another country. And I feel like this book, even though that's not directly from your book, I got that vibe from it where we all have the inner lion and maybe we need to summon him once in a while.
Yeah, that's that's a great summary. I really appreciate that. And you nailed it. It is. I think that is, with this power, Sammy finds out that, with that comes the responsibility of knowing when to use it. And that is the thing. And the next book that is coming out, he deals with some bullying situations, but the difficult thing is it's his friends who are exhibiting the bullying situation, exhibiting the bullying behavior. So that's probably one of the hardest things that we don't talk about, right? Is what to do when the people that we care about are doing something. Like, how do we say something to them? And so finding the courage to, approach our friends with love and compassion, because that also is a big part of this book, is just how to approach each other with empathy. And that's why you see Sammy and his dad, like Sammy's dad comforting him when he's, is not just shutting it down. There is a lot of, connection and that sort of thing. So it is the responsibility that comes with having the power of knowing how to use your voice. It's when to use it and when to step back and when to teach other people how to use it. So the reception, it's been really great. And, and across the board, I've just been really moved with people's reactions to it. And I mean, if you don't mind, I'll share it. Like one anecdote, my uncle, who just passed away from cancer. I was home right when, he was maybe like a few weeks out. And I read the book to him and my nieces. And at the end of the book, he kind of turned to me and he said, nephew, he said, it might be time for me to find my inner lion. And he was like, and so it's like, so that just meant a lot to me too, that adults also can find some can find some inspiration from this as well. And I think that is also one of the most important things that we can do is be vulnerable and, show kids that we also still get fearful of stuff. We also still have anxiety. And when they see how we cope with fear and anxiety, then it gives them the tools to do that as well.
Yeah, we certainly model for the kids. They watch everything we do. And I look back, I had a wonderful childhood where, it's probably, maybe there's no connection, but I'm not a big drinker, but my dad wasn't a big drinker. What you see around the house is kind of what you sort of gravitate towards. Yeah. And when I hit my thumb with a hammer, I'm yelling just like my father did, my late dad. So we're probably like that. Do you see, you're kind of wearing these dual hats now. You're a Broadway performer and singer, and also you're an author. You're going to stay on this path. You don't see yourself going back. I could see you going back to teaching when you're just done, maybe, and if you're ever done with Broadway. I don't know if you'll ever be there at that point, but do you see yourself going back to teaching someday, or are you going to stay in New York and this is the path?
I still love to teach. But I've found a way. I feel like I've found a way to have kind of the best of all the worlds. I still do a lot of community outreach and go into schools and work with kids in different theater programs. I just did like a community career day at a school up in the Bronx. And so while it's not something that I think that I would ever go back to full time, it is definitely something that is a passion of mine, which is why I wanted to write this book. And read and speak directly to kids, because I feel like, cultivating the next generation of not only theater goers, but, leaders in our community is like, that's really, really important to me. And so it is really important to me that I continue to speak to kids and be a teacher for them when I need to be. And it's also not lost on me that somebody's in our audience seeing me for the first time, seeing their self represented on the stage for the first time when they come to see me in Lion King. So it's I still find ways to have teachable moments, or be a teacher to the people who will want to receive it, and I get my acting fix as well.
We've only got a couple minutes left. Being a Broadway geek myself, I go down at least half dozen times a year with my wife. In fact, we were just there seeing Art with
Sure.
Bobby Cannavale, and I don't know if you've seen that show. The James Corden's got a monologue in there, which if I ever meet him someday, I'm going to bow down and say, I don't know how you pulled that off. But you must love the character Mufasa. You've been doing it, Have you counted up how many times you've performed this on stage? And B, do you not find yourself walking from the train to your theater, which you love your job and you love being employed, but looking at the marquee for Hadestown or Great Gatsby or something going, or even Les Mis if it comes back? Boy, I could pull that off too. I mean, do you ever get itchy to do another role, or are you still loving this so much that this is what you want to do?
Yeah, no, sure. Listen, and that is one of the great things about being involved in a show like Lion King, which is long running. They've been really gracious to me about letting me go and do other stuff. So I have been doing a lot of TV and film, for instance, over the course of my 20-year career with Lion King. So I think that that's the only way that you can do a show as long as I've done this, is if you do take time and space to go and do other things, so you can come back and appreciate what you have. But yeah, never lost on me, walking through Times Square, how lucky I am to be, part of one of the best shows that I feel like in the history of musical theater. But then also have access to doing other things while I'm doing that. And they've been really supportive of the book too. You can get it in the gift shop at the Lion King when you come to see it. So
oh wow,
it's a really great kind of family setup that I have with the Lion King, where they understand and appreciate me not only for what I do with them and for them on their stage, but also the artist that I am on the outside of it as well.
All right. Well, we'll have to leave it. It's giving me the little box popping up saying, "Hey, buddy, you're running out of time," so I'll have to wrap it. L. Stephen Taylor. The book is called Sammy and His Lion. You can get it at your website or Amazon, or just Google who's that guy playing Mufasa on Lion King, and they can track you that way. This has been a real pleasure talking to you. You're a gentleman and a delight, and I really hope the book takes off for you and helps some kids out there, because I treasure it myself, even though my kids are older. But it's a
I
wonderful
really
book.
appreciate that.
Thank you so much,
That means a lot.
and thank you for coming on the show. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.